On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we're recapping the game from the other night. Bruins beating the Lightning in Boston 2-1. Tightly contested matchup for those two teams, as well as we're in the middle of watching the Lightning Flyers game. So we're talking about that. We're talking about past games. Join us for it all right here on Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Tanker. I just want to thank all of you for making us your first listen of the day. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe to the podcast and follow us wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form if you choose to listen to us that way. On this episode, we're recapping the game from the other night against the Boston Bruins. And also, we are currently while recapping that game, we are watching the game that is going on right now, and that is Lightning Flyers. So if you haven't already, go ahead and listen to the previous episode or the previous two episodes. I did a recap of the previous Lightning game, and it was not met with certain, enthusiasm. And, not that, my opinion, I usually like to stick to it, obviously. It's my opinion. I'm confident in what I say. But like I stated on the last episode, this isn't, this podcast, this show isn't just me sitting in front of a microphone. It's me conversing with all of you, and hopefully you feel that way too. And there was feedback from the previous episode where I agree at 100% as soon as I kind of took a step back and realized I have been kind of a little bit too harsh on this team thus far this season. And, my reasoning for that was the fact that we have the last three seasons the last three seasons to look at. And, those have all been Stanley Cup final appearances, two of them wins. So there's a lot of hold up to, lot big shoes to fill for this current Lightning team in 2022-23. And if you've been listening all season long, you know that I have been very critical, very frustrated with this team at certain times. But the one thing that I have said that I think that a lot of us can agree on is that I have said I don't mind if this team is still starting to figure it out, if they're doing little things here and there, if they lose games, as long as they're getting better with every game. That's all that matters. Is if a team goes out there and plays a certain type of way, but you don't see any progress beyond that, there's one or two things happening. There's one, this is their ceiling, which, quite frankly, number three in the division right now, well, tied for third in the division with Detroit. I don't feel like that's the Lightning ceiling. I just think that they're a better team than that. And then, or two, something's going on. This team is not getting any better, or whatever the case may be. But I have to say, and that kind of loosely brings me into my beginning of the recap for the Boston game is, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, and I truly mean this, and if I could say this for every single game going forward, win or loss, I think that the Lightning are headed in a right direction. And I believe that this previous game against Boston, 2-1 loss at TD Bank, is it TD Bank Arena, TD Garden Arena? I don't remember it doesn't really matter. But I still call it the Garden, the old Boston Garden. But I believe that this game, well, it was a 3-1 game. I believe this game was the best game the Lightning have played all season. I think that this Tampa team looked like, and I firmly believe this for all three periods. I believe this Tampa team for 60 minutes looked like a championship team. And I know it resulted, and as I'm saying that, by the way, Steven Stamkos, I don't know if he scored on the play, but he just notched his 1,000th point. So actually, you know what? We're switching things up just a little bit to take a minute. But yeah, this Boston game, and congratulations, Steven Stamkos, of course, the greatest Lightning player of all time, hands down. But if Tampa could go out and play like this on a nightly basis, which I hope so. I mean, because and they've shown at certain points, and especially in recent weeks, especially in the month of November, that they are heading in the right direction. That if and when they play like this, they could play with any team, and they stuck with the best team in the National Hockey League the other night in the Boston Bruins. I mean, I don't know how you feel about the New Jersey Devils, but the fact of the matter is that the Boston Bruins, if they're not one, they're certainly two in the NHL. But this game, I think it was vintage Tampa. I think it was a game in which that we have seen them win cups like this. They play hard. They play a 200-foot game. You don't see any one player kind of straggling or doing their own thing. And I'm not saying that really we see that on a nightly basis, but sometimes we'll kind of see certain sequences focus around one player, namely Steven Stamkos, which, rightfully so. You want one of your best scorers. You want to give him the puck as much as possible. But I feel like the Lightning, I think we could all agree that Tampa does fall into that trap of trying to set him up too many times, where the opposing team does, if they don't know already, is waiting for it. And even though Stamkos did score in this goal, it was a strange kind of one-timer, because it wasn't his down to a knee kind of. It was kind of just a click, if you know what I'm saying. If you watch the play and you think of me saying it was just a click, you'll kind of understand what I'm talking about. It's kind of one of those things where I wish I had like the video board behind me so we could watch the replay. But I thought this was a very diverse game for Tampa. I thought that what I liked most about it was that it wasn't just a handful of players in this game that contributed to some of the positive things that we saw throughout this game. It was a group project. And it was, you wish in that kind of situation, when you're kind of seeing a good performance out of pretty much everybody on the team, that the results were different. But clear, that's hockey. That happens. We've spoken about it on this show before, that, sometimes when a team plays as good as what we saw Tampa play at the other night, the score doesn't necessarily, it's not in your favor. So it looked like an assist from Stamkos to Maroon, I believe. Actually, no, I don't even know what goal this is. Oh no, that was just the play. But yeah, I think this was a very positive loss for Tampa Bay. And I was talking to someone earlier today, and you might kind of disagree with this, is I feel like I'd rather see my team play well and lose than see them play like crap and barely win. And I think that's something that we can all echo to a certain extent. Obviously, a win is a win. 2 points is 2 points. In this league, two every single point counts. 1 point could be the difference between you being out of the wild card spot and being in the wild card spot. So, it depends how you feel about it. I'd rather have my team be a fringe, be a wild card team and play well, like what we saw with the Lightning, than be a 1 through 3 playoff spot in your division and kind of be shaky, which I kind of always look back now at the win against Ottawa. So we'll talk about more about that. I do want to do a little bit of investigating while we're recording this podcast, even though this show isn't exclusively, obviously, we're talking about the Boston game. We're talking about the improvements that Tampa made in this game, the positive things. We're talking about that. The recap for the Philly game will be tomorrow, so that will be Friday night. So check that out. But very positive performance in Boston. Anytime that you see see the Lightning play against Boston, and they put out a performance like this, win or loss, I love it. I think that games like that against Boston are really what make Tampa a better team. I always feel like every year we kind of talk about this, where Tampa is kind of we're some of us are kind of on the fence about how Tampa is. Even the 5-3 loss at home. I feel like playing Boston, regardless of how they're playing, those games are always intense. Those games always kind of get reverted back to just doing the basics, like what we saw the other night on Tuesday night. And those are always a good measuring stick for this Lightning team at any time of the season. So, those are the games I always circle on the calendar, because I know, regardless of how the Lightning are playing, whether they're the best team in the division or they're kind of struggling, I always know that those games are kind of going to bring them back down to earth or to reality. So looking forward to the next Boston game. And I like that we saw this performance out of them, because, Tampa have Philly tonight, as we spoke about, and we got Toronto coming up on the weekend. So good slate of games, a good couple of matchups coming up for Tampa Bay. So we'll talk about more about this Boston game in just a little bit. But first, I want to remind all of you that this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. Now, BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds, trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball, soccer, esports. They've got it all at BetOnline.net. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. So once again, I want to thank everybody for making us your first listen of the day. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to our social media pages, LO_Lightning on Twitter, as well as LockedOn_Lightning on Instagram. Follow me on Twitter as well at DenkyDanky, DenkyD8NK. I love hearing from all of you. If you want to tweet to me, go ahead and tweet to me. If you want to message me, that's fine too. I've been slacking on the messaging this past week. Got to get on that. I see a couple of people hit me up. And if you just want to comment on the YouTube videos, that works too. I read them, so definitely, as you could tell in the last episode. But yeah, I really like, and I'm glad that kind of the somewhat listener intervention for me happened just in time for this Boston game, because like I said, I've been kind of frustrated with this team all year, and I feel like I've been holding them on a way higher pedestal than I probably should have. This Lightning team is playing well. It's not like they're really fearing for their lives in terms of the playoffs. There's 60 games left in the season to really get the wheels turning. Now, is Boston going to keep up this pace for the entire season? Chances are no, but I'm not going to say that they're going to completely fall off the wagon. I feel like we're going to start to see kind of like what we see every year down the road, towards the end of the season, is we're going to see kind of like a musical chairs at the top of the Atlantic Division. We saw it last year with Florida, Toronto, and Tampa. I think that started around like late February. Tampa at one point was in first place for a couple of weeks, and then bam, Florida, and then Toronto, I think, was in first place for like 2 hours or something crazy. I mean, I'm just exaggerating. I have no idea if Toronto was ever really in first place at that point. But like I said, I really like the performance from the other night from Boston. So looking back at the score sheet real quick for the Philly game, I know, like I said, I have to enforce this is a Boston game recap. Uh, the 2 goals were from Nick Paul tonight. One of them was on the Stamkos assist in the second period at 7:55 in. So congratulations, Steven Stamkos, 1,000 points. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode. So keep an eye out for that. But in this Boston game, like I said, the Tampa really played within themselves. They didn't try to do too much. And you can kind of see from the opening puck drop that this was not going to be like a track race kind of game, and there was certain sequences like that throughout the periods, namely early on and midway through the second period. We saw that, especially with Boston, they were really fast. I was kind of almost shocked. They were fast in that first game in Tampa Bay, but this game, it just seemed like they took it up to another level, and I think that was just because they're at home and they got Tampa Bay coming off, kind of, I wouldn't say struggling, but kind of just, coming into the building, 6-3 in their last 9. So you kind of want to, not give them any kind of reason to get going. And what I kind of always say in these situations, and I think it was true for this Boston game, was that, it wasn't so much what Tampa didn't do, it was so much what Boston did right. And that's why I'm also kind of not upset about it. I mean, I am frustrated that Tampa did lose this game. But yeah, Boston's a good team as of now. Like I said, can they sustain this kind of performance going forward? I mean, that is yet to be seen. But yeah, anytime I think that really Boston did a good job also kind of like not allowing Tampa to really, really get going. There were certain spurts right here and there in the opening minutes, but you didn't really see any moment in time in which either team was playing on their back heel, which is a good sign to see if you're just a casual fan. If you're a fan of either one of those teams, you're a little bit frustrated. What this game kind of had to me, this kind of element, and I kind of look at it this like it was kind of like one of those defensive oriented football games that we see in the NFL, which I know that's probably very rare for some, depending on what fan base you root for. But it was more so like when you see, all right, Tom Brady, when, his first year with the Buccaneers, especially just meticulously driving down the field, wasting the clock, scores a touchdown. And then, I don't know, Patrick Mahomes. Okay, so in the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes, even though that's not what this happened, just using those two as an example, going back and scoring a touchdown on the other side of the end zone. I kind of felt like that was it in this game, except Tampa only scored 1 touchdown and were on the goal line a couple of times and just wasn't able to convert right there. And Swayman for Boston, I like to crap on him a little bit here and there, but he played good. He played well. I didn't think that he played great. Maybe that's just me being biased. I thought Vasilevsky played very well. There was a couple of sequences there in the second period, especially when things could have gotten really bad real quick there. Tampa not necessarily playing bad or not doing the right thing in that situation, but more so Boston swarming Boston. And what I found interesting with Boston, and I did notice this in the first game, and now this is something that could potentially, because we've spoken about this in the past, that Tampa has had issues with opposing teams taking it and being aggressive down low, is when one of their forwards passes off, that forward who just passed off the puck then skates down into the zone, and it's almost like a long distance give and go. And that could be a very hairy situation for Tampa, especially if they don't come out playing the right way on any given night, especially against this Boston team. So that might be something that we'll have to look at, not only just with Boston, but just with Tampa in general. How susceptible will they be down the road, and will teams have seen that on the highlight film, on the tape, and try to exploit that? Tampa did a very good job of for the most part clogging up passing zones here and there, and as well as clogging up shooting lanes. So, there was a lot of good hockey to be played here, a lot of good positive things, that we saw from this Tampa team, and a lot of good things that I think that we hope, at least, and thus far right now, midway through the second, it looks like Tampa is doing that. I think that they have carried this in. Obviously, I'm just kind of glancing at this as I'm recording. I'll watch the full game later. But looking at the numbers, I thought, yes, Tampa Bay did a very good job. They played a very neat hockey game with a little bit of edge in their game, and there's nothing ever wrong with that, especially when you're playing against a team like the Boston Bruins. So wrapping things up on the show, like I said, Steven Stamkos scored, or better yet, tallied his 1,000th career 1,000th career point, which is, it's a phenomenal accomplishment by any player. It's a phenomenal accomplishment by any National Hockey player to have just played 1,000 games in this league. Another milestone. We spoke about it a couple episodes ago. All the milestones that Steven Stamkos is currently approaching, and it's very. I hate playing the what if game. I hate, because I feel like to a certain degree that sort of discredits what a player has accomplished at that point in their career. He's approaching 1,000 games. He's got the 1,000 points. He's approaching 500 career goals. But one has to wonder, and like I said, I hate saying this, but one has to wonder, only playing 48 games in 2012, 2013, I believe that was one of the lockout years. Being hurt in 13, 14. Playing only 37 games, playing 17 in 16, 17, 57 with, COVID, and also being hurt in 19, 20, playing 38 in 2021. One has to wonder if he gets 82 games or close to 82 games in those seasons, what are his numbers? And like I said, I hate playing that what if game in my head, but it also drives me nuts because that's what you do with the greats. With a lot of them, we look at guys like Mike Bossy, Mario Lemieux, who lost a couple of years to back injuries and cancer. Mike Bossy, whose career was cut short due to back issues, still had 500 career goals. Well, he played 10 years in the NHL, so imagine if he played 10 more. What was his goal tally look like then? The same goes for Stamkos. I always make the comparison to him with Ovechkin. I feel like he's Ovechkin with a little bit more diversity to his game. I'm not saying he's getting 800 career goals, but if you average close to 82 games this season, with a guy like this, if COVID doesn't happen, if he doesn't hurt, if he doesn't break his leg, lockouts, all that stuff, shortened season because of the COVID stuff they played 50-something games that year. One has to wonder, where's he end in goals? Probably close to, I would say, 650, 680 mark. Where does he end in points? I don't even know what Ovechkin has right now in points, but I would say he gets, probably 1,500. I know that might sound a little crazy. I'm pulling up Ovechkin's numbers right now. So Ovechkin has 1,433 career points. you can't sit here and tell me that. You can't sit here and tell me that probably Stamkos is getting more than that because, like I said, he doesn't just score. He puts up a lot of assists. He just reached 500 career assists not too long ago. So it sucks. It's a part of the game, but it's also fun at the same time to kind of sit here and think about out loud, where would this guy be? And I've spoken about this on a couple episodes before, but like I said, nonetheless, very great accomplishment. Will go down as the greatest player in the in this franchise's history, without a doubt. He'll have his number retired. He'll be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He'll probably get a statue in front of Amalie one day. Probably in my book, top 5 greatest captain of all time. We've had this conversation before. Him, Jean Bellevue, Sidney Crosby, Jonathan Taves, and then I guess Marc Messier, and a throw in for whoever you want to throw in there. I mean, there's a smattering of other guys that you could probably throw as that 5th guy. So, but yeah, great accomplishment. Can't wait to see how high on all these leaderboards that he could end up when his career is said and done. So can't wait to see that. But obviously, there's a ton of hockey to be played for him left in his book. I know that. Only 32 years old. So we got at least, he could probably play till he's like 38, 39, 40. I don't think he's going to play till he's 40. I think he'll be here probably 38. I think 38, 39 is probably. So we got about 6-7 years of Stamkos, which is great. So, but we also got a lot more of Lightning hockey this season. We got a lot more of Stamkos this season with Lightning hockey. So join us for all of that going forward. Like I said on tomorrow's episode, we'll be discussing tonight's game. Right now, the Flyers are losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning 2-0 in the second period. So hopefully the Lightning could hold on to that, add on to it, and we'll talk about all of that tomorrow night on tomorrow night's episode. So in the meantime, that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you next week.